coming out tonight. This is a really terrific turnout, and thanks for the host organizations for hosting. And I, too, have enormous respect for Charmaine and George and look forward to many such discussions in the months ahead. I'm running for district attorney because our criminal justice system is completely broken. We have a situation where we're spending so much on corrections in this state that we've literally bankrupted the state. Our recidivism rate, 7 out of 10 people who leave state prison return in 3 years. It's so bad that the Supreme Court of the United States ruled that our prison system is unconstitutional. We now have a confluence of events that leads to an unprecedented and once-in-a-generation opportunity to finally reform this broken criminal justice system. And in order to reform the criminal justice system, we need someone who has spent their career reforming the system from the outside. Unfortunately, someone who has worked in law enforcement their whole career is not going to have the perspective that we need at this point in time for the reforms that we need. I started my career working for community-based and advocacy organizations in San Francisco, like Walden House Adolescent Facility, where I counseled delinquent kids to help them turn their lives around. After graduating from Stanford Law School, I chose to work at Legal Services for Children, where I provided free legal services to low-income kids in San Francisco. I've also worked for some of the leading criminal justice reform organizations in the country. At the National Council on Crime and Delinquency, I literally wrote the book for the Justice Department on alternatives to incarceration for juvenile offenders. At the W. Haywood Burns Institute, I focused on the overrepresentation of youth of color in the system and how we can change policies and practices to make the system more fair. After starting out at those advocacies and community-based organizations and reform organizations, I then started working very closely with law enforcement. First, as Deputy Director of the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice, where I helped coordinate all the different law enforcement agencies in the city, from the police department to the DA's office, to the sheriff, to the probation department. And later on the San Francisco Police Commission, where I worked closely with officers up and down the ranks on reforming the police department. I then went to the Berkeley Center for Criminal Justice to found it, bringing all that together with one simple mission: to bring law enforcement and community together to build collaboration around pragmatic criminal justice reforms. That's what this campaign is all about. And the way I'm going to do that is by building collaboration with the community and focusing on what works. An example of collaboration is around the issue of getting jobs for people coming out of prison. That's a public safety issue. I was able to bring together the most unlikely group of people to build consensus on that issue. 1/3 were from law enforcement and corrections, 1/3 were from community and advocacy groups, 1/3 were from the employment community. And we had everyone from the head of the Prison Guards Union to formerly incarcerated advocates at the table. Under my leadership, I got all these folks to come together and come up with solutions at the state and local level that everyone around the table could agree to get jobs for people coming out of prison. That's how we'll build collaboration in the DA's office. In terms of focusing on what works, something that works very well and has helped reduce the homicide rate here is something called hotspots policing. When I was in the mayor's office and then in the police commission, I helped push hotspots policing in San Francisco by getting a study done by a Harvard expert that showed that over 50% of the homicides and shootings in San Francisco occur in less than 2% of the land mass. Taking that information, Chief Fong and her top aides put together the Violence Reduction Initiative that in 2009 focused on that 2%, 5 hotspots in that 2%, and lowered our homicide rate in 2009 by over 50%, the biggest one-year drop in the country, the lowest number we've had since the 1960s in San Francisco. That's the kind of common sense, best practice that I'll bring to the DA's office. If you talk about what works, you have to talk about what doesn't work. The death penalty does not work, and I will not seek it in San Francisco. Now, I look at every policy issue under 3 prisms. Does it make us safer? Is it cost effective? Is it fair and equitable? The answers for the death penalty are very clear. It does not make us safer. It is not cost effective. It is not fair and equitable, thus I will not seek it under any circumstances, and that is how I will look at all policy issues, by asking those 3 questions and answering them dispassionately. We have built an unbelievable campaign here. I said my campaign's all about collaboration. If you look at our 1,600 plus supporters, many of whom are in the audience today, there is an incredible diversity of folks from all over the city, from all viewpoints on criminal justice, who has come together because there is a hunger for reform and for change in our criminal justice system. And they know that I am the leader with 20 years of proven experience in leading reforms from the outside to reform our criminal justice system. Please join our movement. Thank you.